Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I just want to share a little short anecdote about myself because a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I once proposed to a girl and said I want to get married in June, but secretly I wanted to get married in August, but I didn't want to tell her because I just assumed she would know. But, I was quite surprised and bewildered come August to find myself suddenly single when she actually showed up in June, like I had mentioned beforehand. Now, this story has absolutely no relevance whatsoever to the June or August bride rare machine that is coming to Puzzle and Dragons for North America on August somehow. So regardless of all that, this video will be reviewing all the cards, but unfortunately the timing of the event is not only strange, but it's also unfortunate because it comes on the heels of a Super God Fest. Basically, most players have liberally spent all their magic stones. There may be nothing left in the reservoir, so to speak, so we may not even be able to roll, but I guess thankfully it's a good thing we can't roll because for the most part this is one of the weakest events to ever come to Puzzle and Dragons because the cards are mostly outdated, and even before they were outdated, they were quite bad at that period of time. So, the June Bride Reg machine has 8 to 4-star rolls, and unfortunately, they're all basically like truncated at the bottom, with only the really rare stuff actually being viable. But even the really rare stuff is not really that great overall. It's more so niche situational. But thankfully, everyone is dressed in festive attire, so we are at least able to appreciate the wedding outfits because collecting pretty girls is a thing in Puzzle and Dragons, as well as having some hunky husbandos. So before I review each of the cards individually, they have the ability, the 8-star cards have the ability to be limit broken, and limit breaking means that they are able to level up past 99, which means they gain significantly more weighted stats, as well as having access to Super Awakenings. So these Super Awakenings only function in solo mode, but they provide cards with possibly a new and exciting aspect to basically utilize them in a greater capacity than you could beforehand. Of course, these have no value in co-op mode, so again, just use your judgment as to whether or not you actually plan on using these cards before sinking those 297s into them. So, Wedding Eshamali is the first 8-star card, and she's got lots of orb enhances, which are great, but unfortunately, like those Awakenings are not necessarily the most desirable overall. For the most part, most teams are combo-oriented, and the orb enhances can ruin aspects of damage control if you did have a certain calculation mathed out for, like, say, Sopdet or Parvati. These orb enhances can ruin that. So it is a little challenging to justify using her as a sub. Like, it is cool and all, and it can make for a reasonably modest leader for players who have less developed monster boxes, but the problem is it might be hard to find dedicated friends who run her because, again, if you have anything reasonably strong, you'll be running them over Eshamali. Now, with that being said, her active skill is very valuable for teams like Yogg and even possibly Yusuke or Edward, who wish to flood the board with more light orbs and enjoy that Skyfall aspect. But outside of that, Eshamali does not necessarily have that much usage. It's kind of situational overall, and again, it's more niche for those types of players. And the fact that she does break hard orbs does prevent Mirror from fully activating, which can be awkward, which was always the problem even beforehand. Next is Bride Gadius. So Bride Gadius, he is a reward for the August monthly quest dungeon. So everyone is going to acquire a Bride Gadius. Everyone has the chance to acquire a Bride Gadius, but is he actually that great? Not really, but at least we do get a handsome guy in a suit. But the problem is, if you do roll him, you're going to feel disappointed because now you'll have 2 of them in your monster box. You can purchase him for monster points, but I strongly encourage you not to do so because he is not that good of a card. He's basically Gadius reskinned, and Gadius really never had much merit or value, and of course Bride Gadius doesn't really have that much either, unfortunately. So it's just an unfortunate card for the most part. Like, his awakenings are kind of all over the place. It does not have too much value for even, say, mirror teams where he could have had some value beforehand. The Super Awakenings, while nice, they might help a little bit. He might be a budget solution to a more desirable card for your mirror teams, but outside of that, no really good home to actually utilize him on. Next is Wedding Sheet, and Wedding Sheet spawns columns of light and columns of water on opposite ends, as well as giving 4 turns of light Skyfalls, so that can be great, but the problem is, there are 5 becoming 6 TPAs with Super Awakenings can be nice, but it's a situation where you can utilize them to their fullest extent. It does result in massive damage, but it can possibly lower your overall combo count. Now, an example would be, let's say you have a board of 6 or 9 light orbs. You could make 2 TPAs or 2 or 3 combos respectively. So like, you do lose out possibly on one combo count, which can be destructive for teams that are combo oriented. If you run the 7 combo awakening, it's going to be obviously a problem there. And the thing with TPAs is every card really has to have TPAs to have significant overall team damage. But with that being said, Wedding Sheet does have value and merit on mirror teams, because mirror teams tend to be TPA oriented already because mirror already comes with TPAs, as well as the fact that her multiplier or leader skill is not scaled from combos, it's just scaled from the heart cross. So Wedding Sheet does not necessarily break activation. You can deal spectacular amounts of damage with those TPAs. So it is nice, it is situational overall, but still a reasonably powerful card and one of the better ones from this event. But again, it's not like you actually need to monster exchange for her. It's cool and all, but you don't really need to have it. And I guess one last thing to mention is that possibly in some future ranking dungeons where the like one combo reigns supreme with Zeus Verse, the Wedding Sheet might be good because you match that one TPA and ding, spectacular amounts of damage and things are killed. Something to think about possibly. And lastly is Wedding Roshana, and her active skill gives you 40% full heal as well as changing the top row to wood. Can be situationally useful for that reason. Leader skill is what's going to be quite exciting. They provide a 7x6 board as well as giving you plus 5 seconds to match, and then 2.5 times attack for each color across of either water, wood, or light. And this stacks and ramps up to spectacular levels because you already have the built-in 7x6. Now, her awakenings are actually quite desirable as well. She's got triple skill boost, which is a big deal, especially for wood farming teams. She's got 7 combo and void damage penetration. So this makes her what would be, in my opinion, the strongest void damage penetration option for wood teams or wood cards in general, because right now wood really lacks in a strong hard-hitting card. Furthermore, she has the balanced typing, so she can use any killer latents. So she will have the highest effective personal damage for any wood card for void damage penetration, which is quite wonderful. Like, it's a color that has been sorely lacking because every other color at least has some reasonable option, and now wood finally has a card to fulfill this role. Now, the issue of Bride Roshana is that she has several different aspects, and I kind of want to explain each of them individually. So, as a sub, 3 skill boost makes a big difference in specific farming builds. Like, Kaede is actually a very viable farming leader, and Wedding Roshana is a big deal. Triple skill boost, valuable void damage penetration, short-ish base cooldown. It basically fulfills all the needs you really want to have on a wood farming card. Now, again, like I already mentioned, the high personal damage is great because at least it gives Kaede teams or wood farming teams a chance to pierce through with high amounts of damage, because that was one big hurdle they could have faced beforehand. Now, as a leader, coming with natural 7x6 is great. It means you don't necessarily have to own one yourself. You can pair with a friend and leader swap with something like Matcha. No, sorry, ignore that. You can just pair with a friend and just enjoy the 7x6. And generally speaking, color cross teams have the most value from 7x6 boards, because with 42 orbs, you can match in significantly more color crosses, because you're maxed out on 3 on a 6x5 board, and I think you're either 5 or 6 on 7x6, so it's significantly higher, so your damage scales up way faster. But the fact that you have more orbs on the board means you're more likely to actually have an activate, like at least 2 or even 3 color crosses to activate off of, and you can deal meaningful amounts of damage to various spawns. And the fact that you have at least 3 colors to activate off of means you're going to be almost always hitting 3 color crosses every single time. Now, Wedding Roshana pairs best with her farmable form, which is important as well because, well, everyone can have farmable Roshana because it's a descend drop. Pair with a Wedding Roshana friend, enjoy that 7x6. But the biggest issue would be if you own Wedding Roshana yourself, you enter in a dungeon paired with a Roshana friend, and then you leader swap with something like Matcha or Lee, and now you have double Roshana with the 4 times health, which is a big deal because now you actually can sustain yourself, as well as the fact that you have a bigger board to do massive amounts of color cross damage. Like, you could in the past definitely use something like Chazelle, but Wedding Roshana is a much stronger 7x6 leader overall, so if you're doing content like Altarina, Wedding Roshana with Roshana swapping in is going to be your best bet overall. Still a great card. And one thing to note is that Wedding Roshanna does not have Super Wakings or the ability to be limit broken, and same with new Bride Raijin. So the new Bride Raijin, like her active skill gives you no Skyfall, so that can be some form of damage control. It also gives you a shorter base cooldown. It removes locked orbs and creates all 6 elements. The leader skill is too restrictive. You only can use attacker type cards. There's no defensive multiplier. Just not going to really work out. Their awakenings, you have 2 TPAs. You have a 7 combo follow-up attack, full bind immunity. But they're not really that great overall because the problem is they are essentially becoming a jack of all trades and not excelling at anything in particular. Like, yes, 7 combo with follow-up attack is nice, but we generally have lots of double 7 combo cards with follow-up attack. The orb unlocking is nice, but the full board changer may not necessarily be helpful to all teams. The no Skyfall part can hinder yourself, but it can be helpful in the right situation. Like, you kind of see where I'm going at here. Like, she's not doing anything, she's not excelling in any category. She's just doing everything good to okay. Like, that's a problem because at this point in time, we really want to have cards that excel at something because that helps justify a sub or inherit or a leader slot in your monster box. But if they're just okay, you might just blank them as a generic card if your box is less developed, but when you have nicer things available, you tend to skip over them. And that is really just an unfortunate situation. Like, Bride Raijin could have been significantly stronger if Gung Ho made her just a little bit more powerful. And now we're kind of going downhill. Like, all the cards coming up here are, to a certain extent, kind of lackluster, and it's going to be a little faster, this review component. So Wedding Satsuki has triple TPAs. They have the ability to do modest amounts of damage, but Wedding Sheet just outclasses them in every way, shape, and form. Wedding Sheet also has terrible weighted stats, so that's a big problem there. Their active skill is low value. Like, yes, you take away hazards, but it's really just a water to light orb changer with haste. But then Yusuke teams can't even use it, so you're just kind of like, that's a little awkward. So basically, Wedding Sheet does not really do anything that great, again, but really she's not even doing anything good at that best, so just an awkward card overall. Wedding Persephone is a bit of a different story, but still kind of lackluster. And this is because, like, her color, attribute, absorb, void, active skill, basically it means you ignore spawns that absorb a certain color, is not as unique or original as it used to be. We have much more cards available now that ignore or color absorbs, so you have much more cards to draw from, not as special as beforehand. But the fact that our current Lucky Sevens ranking tournament will give out a color absorb void prize to the top 17% will further dilute her value, because for the most part, players who want to actually utilize color absorb voids are those who are interested in heavy farming. And for, I'd say generally speaking, those players scored perhaps in the top 17%, or they've played enough, rolled enough to actually have another color absorb void available. So she's not that amazing. And then her secondary effect does have a double orb changer component, but dark farming teams are not that popular, so it may not be the greatest secondary effect, whereas Sleipnir, which is the prize from the Lucky Sevens tournament, gives you a 75% damage reduction shield, which at least helps with back-to-back preemptives, like you kill the current floor, ignore their color absorb, and get that big shield afterwards, as well as Sleipnir having the weapon assist form for plus 5% health, plus 10% team recovery. Like, it's just a better option for the most part, so you don't need to have this luxurious rare machine card. And now the 4, 5, and 6 star cards, many of them are actually quite terrible, and this is going to be even more brief, unfortunately. So, Wedding Ra is basically reincarnated Ra's active skill, 77,000 true damage to all enemies, can button through certain spawns, but it's not enough damage to necessarily execute things for, like, say, other scenarios that, like, spawns that have higher amounts of health, like things like Grimjaw, Vitras, they tend to do much more damage to single target and whatnot, so not quite as amazing as they used to be. And the fact that we have so many more button cards available now makes Wedding Ra significantly less special. Maybe you can use them as a sub for 2 skill boosts, but that's just for button farming teams, and again, we have so many options for those at this point in time. Wedding Bastet can give new players the chance for a viable leader that can carry them for brand new content, so she at least has a bit of merit or value there. Can have 40% poison resist, which could be useful. Like, say you're really using a budget option, like, again, on your Yusuke team, you put Wedding Bastet, you have a Raytheon inherited on your friend, boom, 100% poison resist. Can be situationally useful again, but their active skill is quite low value, and most boxes probably would skip over her if they really have the choice to. Wedding Akachi does have a nice, powerful active skill that does have synergy with Saria boards, which was kind of mandatory to a certain extent before for mirror teams, but now we have more options available, so he's not as special as he used to be. Can't really use him as a sub, so just a little problematic overall. Wedding Ruka, she has porpoises in her artwork, but I really can't find any real porpoise for this card. Just terrible overall. Wedding Kano is the exact same, just basically the same as Ruka, just different color. Terrible overall. 4-star cards. Wedding Sopdet. No one likes Sopdet. No one really does, and she's pretty terrible overall, but maybe super niche situation where you want to have plus 5 seconds of orb movement time as a leader. Maybe something cool, but pretty terrible overall. Wedding Izami. So she used to be amazing, and like, I was it maybe a year or 2 years ago, I forgot. I strongly encourage people to actually roll for Wedding Izami because she was quite valuable. But unfortunately, she's a 4-star card. She has bad weighted stats. Times have sadly changed. Gungo's never going to buff her, and now she's kind of useless to a certain extent, unless you're a more brand new player who really needs that damage reduction shield, but even then, kind of hard to really justify. So, in conclusion, the June Bride Reg Machine is pretty lackluster overall. Like, the cards are pretty, but the timing is bad, not just because it's August, but because Super Godfest passed, but it's only a good thing, because we shouldn't be rolling our magic stones here, because for the most part, these cards do not bring enough value for the average player. It's just not that amazing overall. So, obviously, the decision of whether or not to roll does rest upon your own individual needs and preferences. Maybe you really want these cards for XYZ reason, or you want them for collection trophy purposes, or whatever it may be. So, let me know what you think about this event in the comments below and whether or not you actually plan on rolling. But regardless of all that, I wish you all the best of luck in your own pad adventures. Hopefully, you'll have a fantastic day, and happy puzzling.